And after this, here black decides to bring his bishop to c5, attacking this queen, but here Fischer counter-attacks with bishop to f4. And now suppose if black decides to capture this queen by his bishop, then white will also capture this queen, and now you can see that black will obviously capture this c3 knight so that he can create this double pawn structure. But now here after this he can go for d5. Okay, takes, knight takes d5, and after this bishop to e5, attacking this g7 pawn, but simply f6. And now instead of retreating this bishop back, here white can play this solid move, which is c4, which attacks this knight, and it also improves this pawn structure of white. So that's why black will simply moves back his knight, and after this bishop to d6, threatening to capture this knight. And in the next move you can see that white is threatening to capture this knight so that he can ruin the castling chance of black. So that's why knight to f5, attacking this bishop again, but simply bishop to c5. And you can see that white almost completed his development, whereas you can see that black didn't castle till yet, and white is better. Okay, so in the actual game, after this move bishop to f4, here black finds the best move d6, and now you can see that this now black is creating multiple threats like attacking this queen as well as preparing for e5, trying to attack this active bishop. Clearly you can see that white is preparing for e5, which attacks this knight as well as it also opens this structure. And now Fischer is threatening to capture this e5 pawn, so that's why here black decides to just push it further, which locks this position. But guys, here white can also push this d6 pawn, which attacks this queen, as well as it also creates a passer towards this d file. And now black immediately takes on d5. Everything was fine till here, but in this position, now black made a mistake by playing b6, which first of all, which looks fine, but this pawn push also weakens the queenside pawn structure. So that's why instead of playing this move, instead he must consider this move, which is king to d6, which guards this pawn, and by this black will maintain this strong pawn structure. And by this pawn push, here Fischer immediately brings his bishop to f1, targeting this a6 pawn, and now black is forced to capture this a pawn, because if you push this pawn, then white will simply capture this pawn on c5 by his rook. So that's why he goes for a5. And clearly you can see that this pawn structure is very weak, and so basically this is because due to this isolated b6 pawn, but white can easily attack this b6 pawn in future. But firstly he brings his bishop to c4, attacking this f7 pawn, and here black defend this by his rook. And now you can see that this knight can anytime jump to this e5 square, which attacks this king, this rook, and this bishop if this f pawn moves in future. So that's why after seeing this all, here Fischer decides to bring his rook to e3 so that he can guard this e5 pawn and ensure that black will never move towards this square. And now here white can give a check from d2 square. And suppose if he defends this check by his rook, then simply rook takes d6 check, king takes d6, and after that bishop to f7 attacking this h5 pawn. And now black can go for knight to e7, and obviously you can't capture this h5 pawn because then black will trap this bishop by playing g6. So that's why now here white decides to slide his king to e2 square so that he can create an escaping square for this bishop after he captured this pawn. Okay, and now you can see that here white can now capture this h5 pawn and easily get escaped from this f3 square, and yeah, white will be better. Okay, so in the actual game, after king to d7, here Fischer missed this move and he goes for rook to e3. And now this game is equal because black can bring his knight to a7 with the idea of this, and this by attacking this bishop. And after this, black can go for g6. And clearly by this, no side can progress and this position will becomes equal. Okay, so in the actual game, after rook to e3, here black missed this move and he directly goes for g6. And yeah, so basically this move king to d8 is a mistake because you can see that here black leaves the defense of this knight, and instead it's better to keep this king towards this c7 square. And now Fischer immediately brings his rook to d3, asking for rook exchange. And clearly you can see that here white wants to capture this and yeah, so that's why he decides to just move his king to c7, which defends this rook as well as this knight on c6. And after this all, now you can see that these rooks are traded and white has a very strong bishop on this b5 diagonal, which is controlling this knight on c6. And after that, Fischer beautifully steps back his bishop to d5, which keeps an eye towards this f7 square so that he can grab this pawn, and which also controls this important diagonal so that this king can't enter. And now in this position, Bobby Fischer sacrificed his bishop by bishop takes g6. This is because after knight takes g6, simply king takes b6. And now you can see that white will easily capture these two isolated pawns and he will promote his own pawns. And in this position, the final move by Fischer is b6. And in this position, Mark Taimanov resigned. This is because now you can see that no one can stop these two connected pawns. What an amazing endgame by Bobby Fischer. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.